Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending this Audit and Governance Committee meeting for Wednesday, the 24th of September 2025. My name is Councillor Alan Platt, and I'm the chair of this committee. Councillor Mark Clifford is my vice chair. Members are reminded that the meeting is being recorded and will be accessible on the council's YouTube page. If you wish to speak at any stage, please indicate to me you wish to do so. When I invite you to speak, please turn your microphone on and turn it off when you finish speaking. Please speak clearly and do not cover your mouth when speaking to make it easier for any lip readers to understand you. Can everyone ensure their phones are turned to silent? We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in and congregate in St Thomas's Square next to the police station. We'll now begin the meeting. Apologies for absence.
We have apologies from the independent members Charlotte Fitch and Craig Ainsworth, and the independent person, Pete Ripley.
Thanks. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda. Does anyone have any interest to declare? Okay, item 3, minutes of the meeting Wednesday, the 24th of July 2025, pages 3 to 8 in your reports. The minutes of the last meeting are included within the agenda. Are there any comments or points of accuracy to raise? Okay, happy to approve the minutes. Proposer, please.
Yep, can I say move them, Chair?
Yeah, thank you. Show of hands, please. Approved. External audit report, pages 9 to 32. This item is for us to consider and note the report. Gareth from the Council's appointed external auditor, Grant Thornton, is to present this item. Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. So the item that you got before you this afternoon is our external audit report. I won't necessarily go through this page by page, but just highlight the key issues, and then happy to take any questions. So on page 13, the first section of the report, we highlight where we are up to in the current audit year. Our work on your financial statements audit is ongoing at the moment. I'm pleased to report that work is going well and the audit is progressing as expected. We've had good support from the Council's finance staff, being provided with evidence on a timely and regular basis, and we also hold regular weekly feedback meetings for which the Director of Finance often attends those meetings, so any issues are sort of ironed out and discussed on a timely basis. So as things currently stand at the moment, everything is on track, and we hope to sign off before Christmas. On page 14 of the report, we highlight there that we are also doing work looking at your value for money arrangements. This work, again, is currently ongoing. Nothing to report to members at this stage, but looking to, again, issue our report this side of Christmas on that piece of work. You'll note on page 16 of our report, we just highlight there the outputs and the expected timelines for the pieces of work that we're undertaking. And pleased to report, as I say, everything's on track as it stands today. The latter pages of our report, page 17 onwards, are primarily there just for information purposes only. There are various national reports that have been produced by the sector since the last meeting. As I say, there's a number of sort of issues within those, but I say happy to take any questions on anything within the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Gareth. Any questions for Gareth from the committee? Councillor Hayden.
Just a comment, please. Thank you. It was really, really good the way that the report was worded and it was easy to understand. And I think probably the November report will be where we can be more focused on the nitty-gritty. It was about the reading that you've suggested would be suitable for us to look at, and also the recommendations of the questions to ask the officers. And I just wondered how we would manage that, Chair, the recommended suggested questions that we should ask officers on the various areas that's been suggested by Grant Thornton. So financial instruments is one. The suggested areas that we need to question officers in, and also various other areas of business. And so I think we just need to get together of how we are going to manage that as the committee, to ask the questions that we've been recommended. Whether we do that as part of another audit meeting, or whether it's a special meeting that we set up to cover with various officers.
Yeah, I mean, the questions are laid out, and if they're the questions that you'd intend to ask the officers, I mean, could we ask the officers to provide a response to them for the next meeting? Or is this, would you want to add to that? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, Councillor Hayden's asked a similar question to what my slightly different way. I'm just wondering if we've done impact assessments against any of these, so the funding review, the public procurement, etc. Because there's quite some quite significant developments within that. So when I think it is a question to officers about an impact assessment and what the plans are to try and implement. I think that may cover, Councillor Hayden, what you mean on that, maybe, if we did something like that.
Just in respect to, obviously some of them are relevant, directly relevant. I think some, Gareth, must be a bit more generic than just us, because some aren't directly applicable to us as district councils as well. In respect of them all, happy to take questions even now, in training sessions, wherever, and bring updates if there's specific questions you want. In respect of the financial instruments, for example, that's one that is a technical aspect of the accounts. So I'm more than happy to pick that up in the accounts training sessions if you want the technical aspects. Some are a wider kind of conversation about homelessness, for example. That probably would need directors who aren't in the room currently to kind of give some of those responses as well. But certainly for the vast majority of these questions, we could give you responses now or provide a written update for next time. That's not a problem.
Would you recommend these to be answered before they sign off of the next accounts, or is it something that is an ongoing thing?
I wouldn't necessarily expect those questions to be answered primarily before the audit is signed off and the accounts. We're not necessarily highlighting their risks that are specific just to Chorley. Those are sort of national questions that are being asked within the sector, and they're really just to make sure you've got an understanding of the issues rather than something that's necessarily a risk here at Chorley. But I would not necessarily say I need to see a response that you're happy with in order for us to sign the accounts. That's not why we're sort of alerting you to those sort of themes there.
Thank you. Neil?
I just think that's key what Gareth has just said. These aren't directly related to the audit, and actually some of them we won't have the answers until after the audit, until we got the local government finance settlement, until we have the final settlement in likely February next year. We can give you our current opinion on where we stand, but it would never be a definitive answer ahead of the account sign-off because there are ongoing issues in local government generally.
It would be useful just to be confident that they're on the horizon and that they have been noted and something that will be happening to address them as and when we need to.
Councillor Moss?
It's just a comment, really. It's good to know that you have weekly meetings so that if anything is going wrong, it'll be picked up quite early on and can be rectified straight away.
Councillor Clifford?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just referring to page 31 of the report, and this is the Audit and Governance Committee resources. There's a little bit there which is a bit interesting, the public sector internal audit standards. When you actually click on that, I believe it no longer exists, that body.
apologies for that. We'll make sure going forward that those links are relevant and are correct. So, yeah.
No. Thank you. Thanks.
Any more questions for Gareth? No? Just one from me, actually. Your report, Gareth, your page 15, page 23 on the agenda. It's quite worrying to know that the ministry doesn't know if the billions spent delivering services locally results in better outcomes for people, and also that neither they nor the Treasury assess the impact that increases in national insurance contributions have. I mean, I know that won't affect us to a large extent here, but it's just a little bit worrying when you're doing that from a national point of view.
Yes, as I say, these are sort of factual points that have been raised in these reports, so they're not necessarily our own personal views, but yeah, it is quite alarming, I would admit.
Thank you. Is that it for Gareth? Are we happy? You're free to stay or go if you're... Thank you. That report, I think, was for noting, so can we take that as noted? Item 5, the Strategic Risk Register, pages 33 to 38. This item's for us to consider and note. Caroline's going to present this one.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an update to the committee in terms of the Council's approach to strategic risk management and to give, obviously, some assurance that there is ongoing identification and mitigation of risks to support continued delivery of our core objectives and outcomes for residents. The committee is asked to note, obviously, the recent review that has been done of the Strategic Risk Register and the changes that were agreed by Executive Cabinet on the 18th of September. Obviously, the register plays a significant role in risk management and it does outline those key risks that we think have the potential to impact on council delivery. Given, obviously, that we operate in such a changing political, economic and financial environment. It is a live document, so it is reviewed by the senior management team on a regular basis and changes are made to risk descriptions, risk scores, where we feel there's a need to add additional risks. That also happens, or even like removing risks where we don't think those would be impactful to the council anymore. So we do provide an update to Executive Cabinet every 6 months, so they are notified of the proposed changes to the register, and obviously that ensures that Cabinet members are involved in that monitoring process and are comfortable with our approach to managing risk. And then obviously we bring this report here to the committee to demonstrate obviously that is happening. So I just wanted to obviously highlight some of the changes that have been made to the risk register and what was approved at Executive Cabinet. So in terms of the risk that relates to new ways of working and changes to service demand, we have actually just changed the description of that risk because it was felt that there have been a lot of changes, obviously new ways of working adopted by the council, and what's important to us now is making sure that those business models and services that have been implemented, that we're actually realising the benefits of those. So the change to the risk description is more around that benefits realisation and making sure that those outcomes are being delivered. And then we've also proposed to add an additional risk around the local government reorganisation. Obviously that is happening across Lancashire, and this is in the sort of context of the council's ability to be able to continue service delivery, obviously with what's happening around LGR and the impact on capacity and the fact that we will have to use resources in terms of like staff resource to be able to obviously prepare responses and to prepare and ready the organisation for those changes that are coming. And obviously that is, you know, expected to be fairly significant in terms of like the impact. So it was felt necessary to add that into the register. There's also been some changes to some of the risk scores. So you'll see in the report how we score those risks on a 4x4 matrix. So this is about obviously like reflecting the status of the risk before any of like the control measures like are considered and put in place. And then the residual risk score sort of like reflects the status like after obviously we've put those control measures in place. So in terms of the ones that we have increased the score for, it's around the ability of the council to have like business continuity and service delivery in terms of like any sort of like major incidents like that may occur. So a lot of this is sort of like related to the threats from the digital world. Obviously a lot of our services, you know, are reliant on online and digital infrastructure. We are seeing a lot of external threats. So it was obviously like necessary to have this in the risk register and ensure that the risk score was recognised obviously as this being potential like to impact the council, and making sure that we've got appropriate control measures in place. So we are looking at obviously like shared disaster like recovery plan for digital services to make sure that obviously we've got efficient use like of resources and that we are prepared for any sort of like potential disruption to services. And similarly, this sort of like relates obviously to what I'm saying is around those sort of like cyber attacks. We're seeing a lot obviously like being reported quite significantly in the national news. So there is obviously like an increase in the risk score for that one to reflect certainly some of those high profile like incidents, and we know obviously some local authorities have been affected, so it's to make sure obviously that we are, you know, keeping a watching brief on that, and we have got like measures in place in terms of our digital strategy and infrastructure plan. And then in terms of like reductions in risk scores, we have just reduced the score around the failure to realise the benefit of major investments. It was felt here that there is like a lot of ongoing work to progress like the development of a financial model that will ensure that the council receives that optimal income like from any of its large scale investments. So those are kind of like the key changes, just in terms of the highest scoring risks like in the register and the ones that obviously we are really sort of keeping a watching brief on. Financial sustainability. Obviously the organisation's facing a lot of challenges and budgetary pressures from the one-year financial settlement, which obviously can affect our ability to meet service like demand and residents' need. So obviously in terms of like scoring, that is identified as having an inherent risk score of 16. And again, some of the ones that I've mentioned around ICT and data protection, LGR, and then there's also another one in there around staff capacity and skills. Obviously the national job market presents some issues around staffing capacity, recruiting people into, you know, certain like roles and skill sets, and obviously that is something that is affecting like the local authority sector. So again, that is considered, you know, quite a significant risk like to the organisation. And, you know, as we navigate our way through local government reorganisation as well, that will have an impact as well in terms of us being able to attract talent and retain talent. So again, that's one obviously to have a watching brief on. Those, as I said, are sort of like the key changes, the key things to highlight in terms of the risk register. It is an effective tool in terms of our risk management, and as I said, we wanted to provide a committee with assurance that it is an ongoing process, it is regularly updated. Executive Cabinet have a significant role in approving like those changes, and that we do have like strong control measures in place to mitigate like some of those significant risks that I've highlighted in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I'm guessing of the highest scoring risks, there's not an awful lot you can do about most of them.
Oh, well, I think it's fair to say, obviously, a lot of them are out of our control, and that is obviously the discussion like that has been had. But as I said, you know, it is necessary, obviously, to have those like on the strategic risk register because they do present a risk to the council. But it is making sure, obviously, that we work through those and we've got appropriate mitigations and responses in place.
Any questions for Caroline, members of the committee? I'll take Councillor Brown and then Councillor Hayden.
Thank you. Thanks, Caroline. It's just to improve my understanding, actually. Sorry, it's a really good report. So the difference between inherent risk is the raw risk. Sorry. Just get rid of that. Inherent risk is the raw risk, and then residual is the mitigated risk for each of those.
Apologies. So before the controls are in place, and then obviously after you've identified those significant controls to be able to mitigate them, that's right.
Okay. So for the two that have increased, one is an increase to the inherent risk, but this second one is an increase to the mitigated risk, which suggests there's further mitigation required.
So I think obviously like with the digital world, obviously that's evolving at such a pace. You know, that is one obviously that we need to obviously, you know, whilst we're putting mitigations like in place, things can move on very, very quickly and at a pace. So, you know, those mitigations might need to like change like continually in order to be able to, you know, put us in the best possible place to respond to some of those impacts.
Okay, thank you. And just in terms of the comments of the financial officer on it, where it says that there's no direct impact in the report, there potentially could be, though, if there are further mitigations required around some of those areas where we're seeing an increase in the residual risk, I assume.
Yeah, in respect to the finance comments, that's specific to the report, so that's about presenting the risks. There's no direct financial implications. In terms of the risks themselves, there always is potential financial implications, as you say. I don't think at the minute we've identified to put the control measures that we feel we're able to put in place as extra cost. Which obviously if we were saying we're moving this risk from one level to another and we need to introduce a new control, there would absolutely be a narrative around the costs of that. I think all the things that we've said we can do is within existing resource.
Councillor Hayden.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered, I know it's on a 6-monthly cycle and it goes to, the risk review goes to executive and then it comes to us. But if one of these risks starts bubbling, how does it get to executive committee if it needs to before the 6 months is up?
So obviously, if there were like significant issues that needed escalating, obviously they would be escalated to cabinet. This is obviously just our reporting cycle. So as I said, they're constantly reviewed, like by S&T. If there were some significant issues, they would be escalated. This is just obviously the reporting cycle that we would usually work against.
Any more questions? I think we're done there then. Again, this report is for us to consider and note, so if we're happy to note it, we'll carry on. Item 6, the internal audit progress report, pages 39 to 52. This item's for decision, and we're asked to note the current position and approve the deferral of one review until 2026-27.
So this is the progress report, and it provides members with an overview of the progress that the Internal Audit Service have made against the current plan, which is the plan you approved in March this year, covering the period April up to the end of September. So we've provided you with an overview of our current position within Appendix A. So this outlines the reviews that were included in the plan and our current status of completion. So you can see there that we've completed a couple of reviews and we have a majority of them ongoing. The two reasons for the volume ongoing: we have had a lack of resource within the team. We lost a member of the team earlier in the plan, quite early on in the start of the plan, but we have secured additional resource recently. So those should be finished by the end of the audit year. Appendix B provides you with details of those reviews that we have recently completed. So we've provided you with what the objectives are and what our key findings were and the associated assurance rating there. So you can see that the compliance with the construction design and management regulations, that was a review that we carried forward from the previous review last year. That was adequate. And we have a review of corporate training, which received reasonable assurance, and treasury management received substantial assurance. Appendix C, we provided members with the status of our current follow-up actions. At previous meeting, I think members advised that they wanted a bit more detail about the progress of follow-up actions, so we've responded to that and provided the table at Appendix C. I'm happy to answer any questions that members may have on the progress.
Thanks, Jackie. Members of the committee, any questions for Jackie? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Jackie. And I am really happy to see that last table in that shows the actions that have been with revised dates. Where do they go? You know, so the progress around those, do they go to any other committee to ensure that those actions are completed?
We have the corporate governance group, an internal group, which Dawn's a member of, and we have Neil be a member of along with the chief exec. So we regularly advise them what the status is with the follow-up actions. And if there are any particular reviews that need a focus on, they'll be discussed in that group as well, yeah.
I assume that would also cover where you've got, and going back to the previous report about risks increasing, inherent or residual, that there's a triangulation between there as well, because that suggests that some actions maybe need to be done as soon as possible, really, to mitigate those.
Yeah, the strategic risk register would be discussed at the corporate governance group as well. Yeah.
Councillor Hayden.
Thanks, Jackie. I just wondered, on the summary of actions due, which is on agenda page 51, where we've got, for instance, change and delivery, event management, we've got that they've number of actions implemented as intended 22, overdue with revised dates 2, but they've only got a limited rating assurance. So does that mean the most important actions have not been done yet?
With events management, yeah, that was a large exercise, that one, yeah. So you can see they've completed the majority of the actions that were allocated. The actions remaining for that one in particular are based on a particular piece of legislation that was due to come out, but we're still waiting on it. And then based on that, I think it's going to inform policy and a strategy. So this particular piece of legislation is pertinent to completing those remaining actions.
So that will go to confident levels, will it, after those are completed? That's what I'm saying. It's saying limited. Assurance rating is limited on the event management. But once the final 2 actions are updated, will that then go to adequate?
No, the limited assurance rating was awarded as a snapshot in time. So we don't go back and revisit and change our ratings.
So that rating doesn't come with how many actions have been completed?
No, the rating that we give is at the end of our review is that would have been conducted about 18 months ago now, that review. So it was limited based on the fact that we found significant weaknesses and we made 24 individual recommendations.
I'm with you now.
We don't go back and change our rating depending on how successful they've been with their actions.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Okay, Christine.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Just one question from me, if there are no more. CCTV, 2 agreed actions, none completed. I know it's not your job, but is there a reason for this?
It's actually on twice for the CCTV. So for that report, the actions were split between customer and digital and property and planning. So if you look at property and planning, they had 12, they've implemented 10, just still 2 outstanding. And then the ones relating to the customer and digital, that is about the code of practice and policies and procedures. So, but to add to that, the head of service and director are due to come back to the committee in November with an update on that review to give assurance about how the actions have been implemented.
Excellent. I was just picking up the headline figure, as you know. Any more questions for... No? You have to forgive me, Craig. I've just realised that my eyesight's not great, and I've just realised that you're on joining us virtually. If there's anything you want to raise, just mark with your hand up, will you? Right. I've lost myself now. Right. No more questions then. Can we move on to voting on deferring? Can we move on to a vote for deferring the review of the key strategic partnerships and contracts? Thanks. Seconder? Yep. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 7, the internal audit plan, October 25 to March 26. This item is for decision. We're asked to consider and approve the October 2025 to March 2026 internal audit plan. And Dawn's going to present this one.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So as you said, this report sets out the programme of work to be undertaken by the Internal Audit Service for the period October to March 26. The plan's compiled after an extensive consultation exercise. We meet with all the directors, heads of service. We take into consideration the council's priorities, the strategic plan, the strategic risk register, knowledge of operational risk registers, any other sources of assurance we can place reliance on, knowledge really of awareness of key and emerging, new and emerging risks that are coming up as well. So all that is taken into consideration. We try to match it with our resources the best way that we can. Obviously, as Jackie alluded to, we did lose a member of staff within the first 2 quarters. So that's resulted in some of the reviews being delayed. However, we've acquired additional resource. So by the end of the year, we will have completed the same number of reviews that we have done in previous years. And that allows the opinion to be formed in May and brought back to this committee. So the plans are attached to Appendix A, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Dawn. Councillor Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd just like to really put it on record, actually, and thank the internal audit team. Just before the meeting started, you did an excellent training session on this, and obviously, for the people watching on the screen, they won't have seen some of the things that do go on in the background, but it was a very informative presentation on how the internal audit plan is put together. So I'll just give you my thanks.
I think I'd like to echo that as well on behalf of the entire committee, I would hope. Any more questions for Dawn? Just one point, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I'm sure the committee will give the full backing if you do feel you need more resources. We'll take it to the Chief Executive. Right, we now need to vote on approving the audit plan. Can I have a proposal, please? All in favour? Thank you. Item 8, waivers of contract procedure rules update. Pages 59 to 64. This item is for information and noting, and Taz is going to present this.
Thank you, Chair.
So this is a mid-year report, members, in respect of the number of waivers that have been granted during the period March to August 2025. So the last time we had a report similar to this was in March of this year, where you were provided an update at that point. So as Chair has mentioned, this report is for noting, and the report is before you because it was recommendation by external auditors that the committee are provided biannually reporting to ensure transparency and accountability in respect of waivers of the contract procedure rules. So members will actually note that waivers are normally granted in exceptional circumstances and are used where there's an urgent requirement to procure goods and services in extreme circumstances to ensure continuity of services. The justification and reasonings around that are provided within paragraph 10 of the report. So there are specific reasons there which can be highlighted. In terms of the actual waivers which have been approved over that period, there were a number of 8 waivers, and I can confirm that obviously those waivers were approved using the approval systems, whereby there was authorisation required for a number of individuals, including the Section 151 officer, the monitoring officer, chief exec, and obviously an executive member as well. You will find at the paragraph 11 at table, you'll find the details around the department that obviously requested that waiver, the reason or the description in terms of what the waiver was required for, the value, and I have also added the actual reason within that table now as well. I think the last time I brought this report back in March, there was a request that a column was added to provide details in terms of the actual reasoning as well, so I've done that for you. I think that's it really, so unless you've got any questions of me. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Taz. I'll start with Councillor Brown and Councillor Beach, and we'll go down to Councillor Brown if that's okay.
I just wanted to commend Taz on the report, and it's nice having that column for the reasons as to why the waiver's taken place. Makes our lives a little bit easier, so thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yes, thank you. It's good to see that change. So I've got a question just on 3 of them. So 5 of them I kind of understood. 2 of the ones that I've got a query on are joint procurements with South Ribble Council. So one is for the extension of the security licence, and the second one is for the Learning Hub procurement. But the reason given is about urgency, and I'm just wondering with those 2 items why it would be urgent, because they sound like normal business. So an extension of a licence that we already have, and a Learning Hub system that I would assume would need to go through some kind of procurement engagement with staff, etc., engagement between the 2 councils, why they would be done on a single tender waiver, it possibly suggests that we can't demonstrate value for money on those. And then the third one is the really weird statement, the contract for the production of floor plans for Key Council, and it says the nature of the market for the works to be carried out has been investigated and is demonstrated to be such that a departure from the rules is justifiable. So I'm really interested in the market for producing floor plans and why they would be different, because surely that's kind of some kind of surveyor, architect type service, I would have thought.
So in terms of the actual joint procurement for the extension for the security contract and the contract for the online learning tools, I think I can say in terms of the actual, both of them, I think it wasn't realised that actually the contracts were due to expire, and that's the reason why obviously there was a requirement to get those contracts renewed as soon as possible to ensure continuity of service. So that's the reason why those were required. And I'm not going to go into details in respect to the actual security one, because I think that's something that I can't speak about within the actual realms of this meeting. However, in terms of the actual floor plan, so This is in respect of the realisation that we actually don't have detailed floor plans of assets within which are held by the estate, the council. So it's to get specific consultation and advice and assistance around that. So yeah, it is specific to the estate of the council, and there is a requirement for key individual to actually provide that.
Okay, that I understand that one then now. So maybe the reason just maybe needs to be tweaked slightly to describe that it's a professional service by one person who can provide, or something like that, that's the most efficient way of doing it. In terms of the description on the other two, if it is that contracts have been missed, that they're coming up for renewal and it's been missed, I would say that the description saying that it could not have been reasonably foreseen by the council isn't correct, that it could have been, that it's a, it happens, doesn't it? Contracts come up and it's not been, it hasn't been picked up, that the contract's coming up out of date. That is the reason, that, you know, I think maybe the reasons we need to work on.
Yeah, those reasons are in line with what is within the actual contract procedure rules. And what I will say is what it identifies, or what the waivers identify, is that actually there is a requirement for a contract management system to be in place, which we are actually implementing as part of the Tech One contract. So the contract that we have for financial services, there is an element within that which allows for contract management system, and we hope to implement that in April, and that, hopefully that will identify the issue, or will actually demonstrate that the issues that you've actually identified will be sort of closed off in the near future.
Yeah, that makes sense. It gives the council an opportunity to actually go out to procure and you know, with an adequate timeline before that contract expires. So.
I can just add a little bit more context on a couple of them. One of them, the property related one, actually has come from discussions with our external auditors in respect of the quality and the detail that we need in the floor plans to inform asset valuations in future. So actually that was discussed as part of our kind of external audit conversations, and then with property who needed these specific criteria. In respect to the Learning Hub one, again, just a little more context. I think some of the discussions, and this doesn't actually change the reasoning that Paz has given, is when we investigate systems, we realise how much we rely on the data in the systems, and extracting that data to put it in a new system makes it prohibitively quite expensive on a relatively low cost. And I think that's an issue for us to address in terms of timing with the contract management system. But I think when sometimes you could have gone out to tender for a new system and gone, we'll have it quite quickly, actually we're finding we're so intrinsically linked to this system, we need to figure out how we pull that data out. So I think that's more about how much time we give ourselves in advance of it to figure that out.
Okay. Happy with that, Councillor Brown? Yeah? Yes. Yeah. Just one from me. I'm quite intrigued that we appear to have nearly run out of diesel. No? Nobody's going to... Tesco closed. Right. I mean, from, say, Councillor Brown's point of view, would you prefer to get a report brought before us on the first item you mentioned, or are you happy with the explanation?
I'm happy with the explanation. I think, and the contract management piece should definitely address some of this. So I've no doubt when the report comes back, there's probably going to be others, because you'll be working off manual systems. But I'm happy with it as it is. We understand the reason, just the reason in there, accepting what you say about the 3 agreed reasons in the contract management don't quite fit the actual what happened. That's something to consider.
Okay, again, that item is noting, so if we can take it as noted, we'll move on to item 9, which is our Evergreen Regulation of Investigative Powers Act application update. Taz to present this.
I can obviously confirm that there has been no authorisations in respect of RIPA. So yeah, that's the update.
Yeah, one day you're going to have something that is deathly silent around here. I take it nobody's got any questions for Taz then? Smashing. Move on to item 10, work programme, pages 65 to 66. This item is for information and an opportunity for the committee to ask any questions about upcoming agenda items or training. I think Neil's doing that one. I've not got it on my... Sorry, it doesn't tell me who's doing this one.
I think it's just for the committee to talk about if I'm in any training or agenda items that are due.
Thanks for clarifying that, Matt. Okay, any questions about upcoming agenda items or training? Councillor Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a question. I mean, I mentioned it earlier about the training session that we had before today's governance meeting. The question is, are we doing that before every meeting now? I hope we do, but just that's a question. Thank you.
Yeah, following on from your session last week where you discussed the various ways in which we can improve our training, we're putting together a plan and that will include pre-meeting topics that we can cover in each session.
Thanks, Dawn. Councillor Hayden.
Well, it's just a flippant comment really, but on the waivers last year, do you remember they forgot it was Christmas and we had to have a waiver for the Christmas show on the market? So please don't forget it's Christmas, will you, this year, anybody?
Yes.
I'd just like to obviously just mention that, you know, with these waivers, it doesn't sit with the legal department or the procurement department. It actually sits with the relevant department that's obviously applying for those waivers. So although we will try to, you know, the procurement will try to ensure that, you know, those elements will come through the actual cycle, we can't determine it, we can't control it, and I suppose one of the things that will hopefully we'll be able to measure better will be when we have this contract management system in place, which will provide alerts to those relevant departments to say, actually, your contract is about to expire, you need to obviously get on with it, you need to get in touch with procurement, you need to get in touch with legal to ensure that you've got a contract in place which covers all the aspects. So I just wanted to mention that, because I didn't know whether members understood that actually, you know, that element doesn't sit with legal or procurement, it actually sits with the relevant departments. Thank you.
Thanks, Tazza. I think Councillor Hayden's doing a supermarket here, getting Christmas in very early. Councillor Beach.
Sorry, Chair, just to go back to the waivers, I'm assuming once the reasons for the waivers have been met, those waivers will fall off this list, or do they stay on?
They are obviously providing you with an update in terms of what waivers have been approved, so they will remain in the system for at least sort of 6 years. Okay.
Well, we'll get back to the work programme. I take it with no particular queries, questions or comments to make on that? No? Okay, item 11, any urgent business previously agreed with the chair? There is none. So this concludes the meeting. Thank you everybody for attending. Thank you for your time.